So with that, I think we'll get started with this Academy. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this 40th Platform Academy session. So this is almost an anniversary. I'm very excited to have my co-speaker Adam join me. Well, my speaker, so to speak. And we have a couple of colleagues in the background helping to field questions and chat and in Q&A. I could see Ashley and Paige and a couple of other of our colleagues. It's so awesome to see you all joining us for this session. This is another installment of the new mini-series within the Platform Academy, which is called Better Together. And we're here to show you how you can bring together different platform products and platform features to work together to help you solve your use cases as best as possible. And today, we will be putting together the puzzle pieces of Flow Designer and subscription management. And here to speak about subscription management is Adam Stout. Please give a quick introduction to yourself.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm Adam Stout. I'm an outbound product manager along with Lisa, and we cover subscription management, all the fun excitingness that has to do with that. And I can tell by the audience today that we have a lot of good questions in here. So hopefully we'll provide some good ways for you to think about how to apply it, how to manage subscriptions today. And I'm just supposed to introduce myself, not the whole topic. So I've been here 10 years and I love it every day. And these are two of the areas that I spend most of my time in. So I'm really happy to talk about these today.
Awesome. And for myself, my name is Lisa Hohenstein. I'm an outbound product manager. I work in Adam's team. I live in Germany. I've been with ServiceNow for 4.5 years now, in the ServiceNow space for about 7, and worked as a platform owner, developer, and all kinds of ServiceNow things before that. And with that, we'll get into a couple of housekeeping slides. Awesome. Well, you all know this one, and you've probably seen that just before. As you all know, today is early access day for the Vancouver release. We may mention things that you may have seen in the Tech Now webinar just now. So these are things that we might have planned for Vancouver that may be coming or will be coming, or may hit on other future-looking things. Please don't make any purchasing decisions based on that. Is our Academy overview page. So it is amazing that you're all here. You probably signed up through this page, but I still wanted to give a shout out to the other Platform Academy sessions. There are more than just platform foundations. We have academies about Next Experience, about mobile, about virtual agent, that is conversational interfaces. And what you're probably all very excited about is the artificial intelligence streak of things. So there will be multiple new in Vancouver academies later this year dedicated to the AI features on the Now platform. So be sure to sign up for their academy. And that's about all I have, except for starting the poll. So before we dive into subscription management and Flow Designer, we have a quick poll with 2 questions. And we'd love to know from you, do you currently use a flow to manage adding users to group? This is completely independent from subscription management so far. And then for the second question, have you configured the groups for subscription management? And the answers are trickling in. We see some yeses, a lot of no's.
This is good. So we'll talk about, as we go through, we're going to be talking about subscription management, of course, in groups and using flows with them. So understanding where you're at is going to help us tune what we spend the most time in the next 50 minutes or so. So we'll get a lot of responses coming in.
That's awesome. Yeah. So whenever you're ready and we have enough replies that came in, we can leave this up for a second if you want to. And if you like, you can head over to the resources.
Okay, great. So we have our poll questions coming in. We'll go review those. We're going to end with the resources. The resources will be in the link, but I'm going to bring them up now because there are going to be questions during this, and it's going to be easier to know that you have some more resources. We're not going to be able to talk about everything having to do with subscription management in the next few minutes. We're going to be focusing in on those flows. So a couple of resources that are really key. There is a Now Learning training on subscription management. This was updated about a year ago. I think it still all applies through Utah. with Vancouver, there'll be some new screenshots that come through. The fundamentals behind it still apply. So you don't need to retake it yet. We'll go through and update those screenshots. And I made it through the first slide before we get to this. There's new subscription management store app that's coming out with Vancouver, a new UI. It moved into an experience that looks just a lot better. And there are going to be improvements coming through, or they're planned for the November store release, and then in Washington and probably after that. So we are moving a lot of the subscription management functionality into a store app so we can update it more frequently, and then we can also make it backward compatible when that's possible. Of course, there are some things that require platform updates, but we are looking to iterate faster and really improve the experience that you see. Screenshots, what we're talking about today, all applies today. It applies through Vancouver. It's going to apply going forward. What we're talking about are going to be concepts, really key. Again, take that training. It's 20-30 minutes, really helpful. Next, a couple of other sessions where we spend a lot more time with me talking. One, a subscription management overview back in Academy number 8. It's been a while. We can reminisce about that. Where we spent a lot of time in there. We're going to talk a couple minutes. We have a couple slides from that. We're going to spend a couple minutes on that, but there's a full hour really talking about all of subscription management and what it has to offer for you. And then with subscription management, we have to deal with mapping custom tables, and we spend another 45 minutes talking about that in number 26. You get those links here. Really important to watch those. This is really the third in the series of that. I'm hoping you've seen those. You'll get something out of this, but you want to go back and watch those if you haven't watched those yet.
Definitely.
And then as we other sessions that are useful to have when we talk about it, because we won't go into all the details with subscription management and flows, we were talking about approvals. So Lisa and Andrew did a great session on approvals a little while ago. A good one to watch. We're not going to answer questions about how to do parallel approvals and everything that goes in, but you're going to want to know those. That's talked about in that session. And then at the end, actually, we had a special guest with Decision Builder to come in, where we'll talk about how you can use Decision Builder and decisions in subscription management as well. Great session on that not too long ago. And a couple of questions that always come in. Sorry, Lisa.
Oh, I just wanted to show the poll results if you're interested.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go with that. So just sharing this for a quick second, we have about a little less than a third who have created flows to manage their groups. More than 2/3 that don't. So this is the perfect session for you. And then also over 2/3 who have not yet configured groups for subscription management. So there's a huge amount of potential learning today.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we should have asked if that's the same group of people. The percentage is so much match, but where we want to get to as we come through here is that yes, you're using flows to manage adding users to groups, and yes, we've configured groups. We've done both of those things. Subscription management is going to really help us out, manage our costs, and give us visibility into our costs. But again, more than visibility, we want that ability to manage them. So great. This session's for you. Glad you're here. Let's go through it and make sure you're asking questions along the way. And then I'm hoping that Lisa or our other people in the background will ask me those questions and interrupt when it makes sense. Okay, a couple of other important references to come through. So if we're talking about setting up groups, a lot of us haven't set up groups. We talk about it in that first webinar. There's a KB article that walks you through it as well. It's good to read that KB article. There's a couple little scripts and how-tos to walk you through really how to do it. In the webinar, we explain it. The KB article walks you through it, whichever way you prefer, or to watch it, to read it, to do both. That KB is there for you. And then currently we do have some differences between our use verification reports and what subscription management reports. These are a lot of the improvements that we're making through Vancouver and Washington to align these. We're working hard to do that and make sure we have the right answer for you. But today there are some differences. The number you see, but they tie out. We know what the differences are, you can match them and make sure that we are getting the right number. This KB article is available to you. I updated the screenshot at the end, not this one. It is available to all customers when you log into support. The KB number is the same. It's been updated a little bit since in the last couple of years. But then again, it'll explain to you how do you tie the differences so you see what use verification has, what subscription management has. Use verification numbers are our official numbers that come through. The vast majority of the time, they're just going to lower the numbers that we see in subscription management. Subscription management's a little bit more aggressive on who needs a user and how we're counting those. So if you want to pay more, then that's fine. But if for right now you want to go with what user verification has, but again, you can tie out those numbers. Okay, we're going to get into it now as we go through. So the first thing we talk about was subscriptions. We're going to talk about the subscriptions, and I'm going to bring up an instance with some subscriptions on it. We're going to walk through it a little bit, and it's a great time to ask a few questions about it. When you look at subscription management, so in subscription management, you'll see the subscription overview dashboard. You'll see 4 types of subscriptions. There is a rare case, you'll see a couple other ones, but these are the main 4 ones we're going to see. Per user, and per user is where we're going to focus all of our time. These are the ones you need to manage. This covers all of our fulfiller subscriptions. They cover SPM as well, and the application users, SPM user type things. They are managed with groups. That's what we're going to be focusing in on. And then they're audited based off of roles. So our user verification team just looks at who has the roles, and that's how we manage the per user. These are ones you have to actively manage. Really, really important. The other 3, just so we know what's are in there, are unrestricted user. They are also charged per user, but we don't count them as per user because we just simply look at the number of users and sys users and sys user. There's a couple filters on that, so we're not charging you for printers and conference rooms and things like that. But
service users and active users.
Yes, so we are looking for, but it's there's nothing you can do other than have sys user. You create a user, it's going to be counted. There's nothing you have to actively manage there. Then we have capacity. Capacity is where is our ITOM products, automation engine, anything that's transaction based, subscription unit based, where we're just counting what happened. Those are capacity. Again, nothing for you to configure there. It's just going to run. And if you have questions about that, there are KBs that explain how we follow those calculations. You've seen in the last few releases, we exposed the definition number, which is a query that we run or a script that we run to get that count. If you go in through Utah and in Vancouver, you can just click on that definition number. You'll see the query that's being run, and you can go look at it and slice and dice it however you want. But again, nothing for you to manage, and it's just audited by running a query or a script. And then display only. These exist for things that we don't actually audit in the instance. So there's some, if it's a custom SKU that we can't measure for something, it might be marked as display only. And then there's a few other things that the instance doesn't actually know, but we'll show it as a subscription. That'll be display only. So these are the 4 types you're generally going to see. And we are going to spend our time talking about per user. Again, and per user being the one that you do have to actively manage. Okay, going over what we have. In subscription management, we really want to make sure that we are managing our subscription and what comes through. In the past, what we've seen is just reactive subscription reporting. I just want to report, tell me how many I have. And that's the first baseline. That's what we need to have. That's what we get with the subscription overview. How many am I using? How many did I buy? How many am I using? Great. But then you just get a bill and we don't know what's going on. We're going to talk more today about how do I make sure I know what number is there and how do I know that it's right. We want to move to a proactive subscription management where we're using flows to make sure people who need subscriptions get them and people who don't need subscriptions don't get them. Not just how many do I have. With the size of implementations we have, the number of users that are using it, you simply can't just rely on a number and pay it. We want you to know who's there. We want you to know that they need it. We want you to know that these people have these licenses and we're paying and we'll pay for them. Not just there's everybody who got it. So how do we do it? What do I mean? Like, what are we going to do here? So 1, it's governance. Number 2, it's governance. Number 3, it's governance. But I put in 3 slides because people don't like having that. So everything we're doing is about using that flow, using a catalog item to manage who gets it. We want to gate who gets a role, which is then gating who gets a subscription. Once you already have the role, you need to have the subscription. It's in the past when we didn't have subscription management, we just gave roles out and we thought about it just technically. We need to think about it, understand if I give the ITIL role, I need to know where that subscription is being paid for and if I have any more slots to give to that user. So we're gonna put in governance to prevent surprises. We don't want to get a bill at the end that we weren't expecting. We're gonna recommend using a service catalog item to manage group membership. In the past, I have seen where group managers can just add users to it. That's very scary from a financial perspective. I can just give licenses. You get a license, you get a license. We want to make sure that we understand There are some groups that are fine. If there's no subscription that matters, then fine. I don't care if you give access to a group that doesn't have any financial implications. But we want to make sure we always go through that process and we're always checking. If there aren't any, let it happen. But we want to use that flow. Using a service catalog to exercise the flow is the easiest way of doing that. And then we need to figure out how we're going to enforce that model. We're going to enforce it with the flow. What the model is, we're going to talk about some variations. But for you and your organization, you're going to have to decide what makes sense for you, for your governance. What level do you need and what rules do you want to follow? So I've been talking about groups for a few minutes. What do I mean by groups? What's a subscription management group? It's a group. I'm not creative. A group is a group is a group. And we use them all the same. It is sysuser group. And it works out really well when we think about it. I get some people having some pushback about why are we doing this, but we're already putting users in a group. We're giving those groups roles, and those roles require a subscription. So rather than having something off way over here, and we tried this in the past, where it's disconnected, to succeed, you want to pull subscriptions to the forefront. You want to make sure that everything you do when you're assigning roles, you're putting users in them, you understand what that subscription impact is so that we knowingly use what we have, whether we're underusing, overusing, and deciding what to do. We're not going to block you from going over, but I want you to know that you're going over, and I want you to make informed choices. So that's why we have where we're just using normal groups for this to come in. And why we use them, again, it's using groups rather than direct role assignments is a security best practice. We're just encouraging that security best practice. You don't want to give roles directly to people, to users. You can. I have heard nothing that we're going to turn that off. And it makes sense for something like SNC internal, SNC external. There's a few other roles that kind of everybody gets with some HR stuff or some security stuff. Fine. So I don't know that we want to block it, but anything that requires an entitlement, you definitely want to go through groups. Why we do that is that a role is just a role. It's a string, right? You might have a description, but with groups, we get that additional context about why do they need ITIL? Why do they have incident read or case read that comes through? So it allows me to understand they need this because that groups gives me that. And then the one that is my deal breaker that we have to do, they don't have anything else. Roles don't have owners and groups do. If I have 2,000 users that have a role, there is not a person who can know 2,000 people and know that they all need that role and why they need that role and that they still need that role and who's paying for that role, right? As we get bigger in departments and chargebacks, what's going on? With groups, we will talk about this at the end. We are able to use things like data certification to make sure that everybody needs it. I can't know 2,000 people and if they need it, but I can talk to 200 managers who have 10 people each. You can go, yes, these are the right people in the group, and these people do need this role, which means they need this subscription. And in certain cases, when there's overlapping, is it CSM or ITSM? They're the ones who are going to be able to make that decision. So using groups and leveraging the group managers is really going to help me make sure that I'm not just throwing out stuff and having to clean it up later and removing extra stuff. We can be very smart and not impact our end users.
I think this might be a good quick tie-in for a couple of the questions. And I think you may hit on some of these points. So just let me know and to defer them. One of them is there a way to identify system or integration accounts users so they aren't counted towards unrestricted user subscriptions?
Yes, and I will tell you right now, I just don't have it top of my mind for fulfiller users. I think we don't count the integration users, but I think we might, but we're aligning that. Those are one of the things where we saw some inconsistencies and we're aligning it to make it clearer across the board. But the way you want to do it, and there is KB article on this. There absolutely is KB article on this. You can ask your account rep and they can confirm it so you can get this in writing and see what's going on. But it is using the web service only field. So there is, I believe it's ZBoots on, so everybody has it. If you have an older instance and you don't have it, if you search for web service only, that there's a plugin that will turn that on. And again, all the new instances have it, I believe. But if you mark a user as web service only, it will not let them log in through the UI, but they can call through all the web services. They can interact with the system. So that's where we'll normally see those integration users, and that's what we're trying to not count. So how do we audit with groups to go through? Because we can. So we have 1,000 seats of license. We want to audit through all of them. We want to make sure that we're leveraging group managers to again, authorize to go, yes, these people are still in my group. Yes, they need all of these roles. Yes, this is the subscription we should be charging to. There are cases when we entitle things. If I only have ITSM Pro, it's pretty easy. It's ITSM Pro or not. But if I have ITSM and CSM and FSO or FSM, sometimes there's overlap of some things. And so we do need to understand which subscription should this be charged to. Okay, and with that, I did want to pull up. We're going to spend just a minute. I'm going to try and switch over, and hopefully my monitor works through this. We're going to bring up a couple subscriptions, and I think we're going to answer a couple of those questions that we came in with. So we're going to do a new share.
Yeah, there's the other question that just came in is how do we identify paid roles from free roles?
So we're going to click on that one.
That's a perfect question for this. Yes,
yeah, it is a perfect question to come through here. So we're going to spend just a couple minutes clicking through this, and because I do want to make sure everybody sees what we're looking at. So this is the subscription overview. Everybody should have this. I am under subscription management, subscription overview. I have a dashboard to come through this. It's going to list all my subscriptions. As a note, it will list expired subscriptions as well. Today, that's one of the things we're fixing in Vancouver. The expired subscriptions, you do want them on your instance because they're a reference. And as you renew and some SKUs change, there's cases where you need to move from the old to the new if I'm mapping or with subscription groups. So we don't want to delete the old stuff immediately. Today, they're displayed. Once we get into Vancouver, they'll be hidden. So you only see the current ones. And then if you go into the details, you can still find them. So it's getting a little bit better, but don't be shocked if you see that. What we're going to see is a list of my subscriptions. Mine are made up, but hopefully they look reasonable enough. My start date and end date that comes through. The type, so we talked about, so my capacity ones are run through via a script. We'll go into that and just, we'll see if my test one has that in here. Per user, these are ones we have to manage, and whether it's fulfiller or APM user or business stakeholder, they're all managed per user. They're all done through groups. Everything we're talking about goes through those. And then we have display only, like encryption. I get encryption. There's no units to do. There's nothing you want. I have encryption. And then again, some more scope, some more capacity. We have what we purchased and what we allocated. If you see something that's wrong here, put a case in. You talk to your account team, can put a case in. If there is a number that's here, we have a team that will go figure that out and resolve it. There's nothing you can do about this. This information gets your instance every night phones home to say, give me the latest information that comes in. So if it's wrong, we need to correct it, right? This should be correct is what you see. If should be no surprises. And then allocated, what we'll see here is that these are all 0 because I haven't set anything up. My capacity is because I'm not using them. Yeah, so what we're saying is I haven't run anything. And so we haven't set up those per users. Out of the box, per users are going to be 0s. I'm going to go into my ITSM standard. All right, when this loads up, what we're going to see in here is the list of applications that come through. And over the top, we're going to see the basic things that are on here. I'm going to call this out. I believe we're showing this now in Vancouver. There is a field on this record where it tells you the measured role types. It's not on the form. I went in and added it to the form. As an admin, I can do that. This is being replaced in Vancouver with a new experience. So if you do this on yours, don't worry about skips. You can do this. If you have a Tokyo instance, a Utah instance, and you add that field, it's okay. We're not going to cause any skip issues that are going to hurt us because we're going to the new experience in Vancouver anyway. Really important. We're counting fulfillers, we're counting requesters. And then down here, what we see are the users that have this. You'll notice there's no new button, there's no edit button because we don't add users to subscriptions. We do not add users to subscriptions. We add groups to subscriptions. I can come in and edit groups. And I'm going to add my presidents. We'll save that. To note, the users won't be added immediately. I'll show you where to click, but there's a daily job that processes this because members come in and out of groups all the time. We're not trying to slow down your instance. So just once a day, we sync those up. There's a button on the subscription overview to update the allocation. There we go. So we'll see the groups are added immediately. The users are not. Key part about roles that came in. So with ITS, I'm on ITBM standard. With ITBM, here are all the applications that are included in ITBM, and then the associated roles. Really key here is the role type, fulfiller, requester. For this subscription, we're counting fulfillers and requesters. So these roles require a subscription. If I'm an ITSM sold by fulfiller, the requesters I can ignore. But this is the list of roles that comes in. If you have custom roles we need to deal with, then you talk to your accounting. We can do an audit to come in. Those is another area we're working on very, very, very actively for Washington to be able to report into your custom roles, look at the ACLs, and understand which subscription they would map to, which applications they map to, and what level they are. So you get that as you're developing as well. Okay, so those are the roles, a couple of key things that we wanted to go through. And when I go to back to the subscription overview, I have a UI action to update allocation totals. We'll continue. It takes a second to run. It's very quick. And what we'll see then is that my allocation for ITBM is now 6 because I've added the distinct users. Again, this is really important as we get into the flow. If I have problem manager and change manager and ITIL, and I'm in 4 different groups that I got those, it's 1 seat. It's all ITSM, right? So we distinct out, and what we're actually just going to show is this user needs this subscription. Doesn't matter how many roles you have, doesn't matter how many groups you're in, how many subscriptions have that. Okay, did we get all the questions related to the subscription stuff covered? Yep. All right, let's get back to the flows. So let's a couple of tips that we go through on sys user group. There is a related list. It's not shown by default, but there's a related list for managed. It's called licenses. It'll show up as managed subscriptions. I recommend everybody add this to the list, whether you have a custom view, whether it's default or whatever it's going to be. If you go into sys user group, edit the related list, add managed subscriptions. Again, I want subscriptions to be at the forefront. It's going to be really important. And if I go into roles, by default, I believe it shows contained roles. I show contained by as well. And I also like to show subscription roles. To the question about which roles are free and not, you can put this in to say, well, when I'm looking at this role, which subscriptions is it available to me on? Which apps is it a part of? That data is in here. It's a related list. You just need to add them on and you can see it. All right, let's get to the meat, building a flow. So what we are going to be doing is going through to talk about what kind of flow do I need? What do I need to think about to make adding a user to a group understand subscription management and management. And I hope, let's talk about what it is. So you need to understand, or you need to decide, consider, whatever words we want to use, who's going to approve using a seat? Who is it in your org that approves this person can have an ITSM license or an ITBM license? Does the group manager approve before that person or after that person? There's a financial impact, there's a security impact, there's an operational impact. Group managers generally are going to be operational, maybe on the security side, maybe on the license side, but that's different in every org. So you're going to have to understand what flow do you want to have? Do we want parallel approvals? Do we want serial approvals? Do we not need approvals? We want some pre-approvals. So things like, hey, this person's in IT. So if somebody's in the IT department and they want ITSM, just do it. If they're in marketing, they want ITSM, we're going to get some approvals for that. And then what do I do if I'm fully allocated? What happens if I don't have any more seats? Do we go over or not go over? ServiceNow at this point in time, and I'm a very big proponent of this, we're not going to stop you from giving a person a group because you need to work. We'll then screw up. We'll deal with it later. I don't want to say you have to remove one before you can add one. You want to add one or remove one, that's fine. Not all organizations are okay with that. You have to decide. You have to understand what your organization's okay with. What do you want to have? You can go over by a couple, but not unlimited. What's going to go on? Again, how do we prevent surprises? Forcing limits to come through. Again, there are no hard limits in the system. We don't count roles when you're adding them to a group. We don't count subscriptions when you're adding users to groups. ServiceNow doesn't, but we can use the flow so that you can. And we're going to, again, enforce with governance to get the right approvals. What do you want to have happen? And then that's what will happen. Let's talk again about some more use cases. So a couple of examples that we're going to walk through, and I want you to make sure you're doing this for your organization. What is the user's current group membership? What subscriptions do they have today? What's the user's department? what groups are they in? What subscriptions do they have? If I already have an ITSM subscription, then it doesn't matter if I get another one, because again, we distinct out to be one subscription. Just because I have problem manager and change manager, it's still part of ITSM. The type of subscription really matters, because if it's a capacity subscription, it's an unrestricted user subscription, you're paying for them all. You're paying for everybody in sys user. It doesn't matter. And then the allocation, that understanding how we check to go, are there seats or not seats? Again, for your tolerance, because there is no hard limits. We're going to let you do it. You have to decide if you want to do it. So let's talk about some sample users in these use cases. So I have Arun, who's in the development department, and he wants to be added to the database group, which requires ITSM Pro. What do I want to do in my flow? I want to have Arun's manager approve it to make sure that he needs to be in the database group for being in development, and then the group manager. And the reason we're doing that is because Arun doesn't have ITSM, so there's a cost. So I, in this use case, want the manager to approve the cost, because we're going to bill back. So approve the cost first, and then approve the security. That's what I wanted to do, but you have to decide what your order is going to be. I have Eric. He's in IT. He's already a member of Service Desk, which has an ITSM subscription. He wants to be added to the same database group. Now I don't need to ask Eric's manager, because there's no cost implication, but I still ask the group manager. So different approvals, even though these two users want to be added to the same group. And then if we go through the same thing, Steven's in IT, not in a current group, but he's in IT, and we have already just put in a pre-approval list. Say if you're in IT and you want ITSM, all we just need to know is, can I be added to the database group that comes through? I don't need to get the manager's approval, because we have the CIO approval for it. I don't have to give everybody in IT an ITSM subscription if they don't need it. I'm going to make them ask for it, but we're going to make it really easy when they ask. And then if I have an example with Lily, Lily's in IT, the same thing. She wants to be added to ITSM, which also requires ITSM Pro. But ITSM Pro is fully allocated. Well, now I have the subscription owner. I've said, if you're fully allocated, you need to go to the subscription owner to go through. I still need the group manager. Since she's in IT, I don't need the group. I don't need her manager to approve it. That's already been pre-approved. Again, the same thing, but we have Leanne who's going to do it, but fully allocated. She's in sales, but she's really nice. I know. But she's nice. I know. And now we're going to require 3 approvals, right? Everything we have to go through the same gambit. And if you notice, all of these examples, we're asking for a user to be added to the database group, to the exact same group, but the approvals are very different depending on other things we're going to look through in that flow. And then we have the last one. The note here is that this was enterprise. It's a UU subscription. I could have Pro as a UU as well. I don't care. You can't be over allocated. There is no additional cost. So we just need group manager. We've always need the group manager. That's what we're putting in place. And you could even bypass that. You might want to have a rule that says, if I am the group manager, just do it, right? If the group manager works for me, for the requester, right? Not the person who's being done. If the requester is the group manager, just do it. That's not by default, but I can put that in there. If the group manager works for me, just do it. If I have some other role, just do it. Again, all very specific to what you want. So the flow, we have a lab for this to go through that we did acknowledge. We're going to get the lab guide out there. As a note, it won't work on your instance because it requires a very specific set of subscriptions to come through, but the concepts in it work. We will get that out there, I believe, as a reference that you can walk through. The flow for this gets pretty big, so you wouldn't be able to see it. So we just have this mock-up of it here, but I submit a request. In my case, I'm always going to get group manager approval. Again, you could modify that if that makes sense, but there's cases you don't want that. If the group manager doesn't approve, we're done. If the group manager does approve, then we're going to look, is this a per user subscription? Because again, display, capacity, UU. If the group manager approves it, we're done. If it is a per user subscription, does the user need a subscription? Do they need it, or do they already have it? If they need it, then we're going to ask for their manager, because I'm going to have some bill back and make sure that manager is paying for it. And then I get to approved, add the user to the role, and have that fully automated to come through. So again, it can be just a straight path and be automatic. And then otherwise it can go through all the different approvals it needs to come through. Really basic, you can do that, but a couple things that we go through that I just want to throw out to make sure we go back and look at are things like through the approvals, updating stages about which in my catalog flow, make sure that I'm updating what approval am I waiting for? what stage, right? I see these names, but understanding we're waiting for a subscription approval, or we're checking the subscriptions, whatever needs to happen there. I like to capture a bunch of additional information about this. So if I go to the catalog item, I understand where my request is. If I don't, then I'm kind of going to send some emails or some Slack messages of what goes on. So we want to make sure that the catalog item, we know what's going on. We're updating those comments. And then at the end, I actually might just use a decision table to understand who does own the subscription, or do my pre-approval lists. I can create tables, I can do lots of things, but a decision table makes for subscription management really, really easy to manage, because I only have 6-8 subscriptions per user subscriptions. That's actually kind of a lot. And I can use a table to just go, this subscription gets this one gets this one. If they're in this department and they did the subscription, I want to pre-approve it. Decision table is an awesome use case here to make this flow really simple and very manageable, and let your subscription managers configure those rules as they want, as they need to, without having to rebuild the flow or go do a bunch of extra work. So an example, I like to put in those stages for my flow about group manager approvals, subscription approvals. Some of those are going to be bypassed because there's no subscription impact, but we are checking and we'll go through. And then the actual execution adding to a group is going to be the second. More information. This is one that gets me, always annoys me when somebody wants to be added to one of my groups and I have no idea the context of why. So I like to add a justification in my catalog item to make sure that we're saying, why does this person need this? Why does Leanne in sales need access to the database group? You can put other things in here important as well, like the charge code or whatever you want to have if there's a subscription that's needed. So making sure that catalog item, everybody along the line understands what are the security implications, what are the operational implications, what are the entitlement implications, and do we have all of that worked out at the request level? Because it's not just I need ITIL because I need to do something. We want to make sure we have all of that squared away. And then I do go through and add my comments. Again, what's going on about what subscription did you need? Really useful if you're debugging it to go, you already had ITBM, so we granted this. This needs ITSM, so we're going to ask the ITSM subscription managers. Whatever you want to have, whatever it's going to explain. Again, I really like those comments in there, not just waiting for approval. People seem to get frustrated with that. And again, that decision table, decision builder, as we've gone through, these are my slides that I stole from one of the previous academies. As we click through really quickly, it allows us to simplify our flows. Absolutely true. I don't have all these ifs for the different types, whether I'm doing the type of subscription, I'm doing the subscription itself. Again, I only have a few choices of which subscriptions are going to come in. Allows me to build that reusable logic. We can use those APIs. We can automate a lot of things using, if we have that decision, and calling the flows, and it empowers the business SMEs. In my larger customers, I don't see a lot of overlap between the people who understand the entitlements and the people who write flows. That group is not overlapping at all. I'm sure it exists. I'm sure somebody on this call does both of those things, but it's really nice to be able to separate that out to go, you don't need to know some of my flow. You can just tell me which subscription you want to have. And the same way around, we allow those SMEs to take advantage of that, which we get with Decision Builder and decision management. All right, and we can use it wherever we want to use it. Okay, I think the last piece that I wanted to jump into to make sure we talked about flows and building out the flows and making it really rich. We start with the catalog item. We have a rich answer, but now we're talking about group certification. There is an awesome feature. Well, let's talk about what we do today. Today we go to subscription overview. And I have 100 users. In the example below, and I apologize, this is a bit small. I have 100 ITBM users. Well, I actually have 113. Oh no, what am I going to do? I'm perfectly happy with the response of I'm going to buy 13 more licenses. I have no problems with that. Highly recommended. But before you do that, we might want to justify these people are all active, but do they all need it? Really hard question to answer. 100, maybe you can do it. If it was 1,000, it gets to be a lot more challenging. This is not that big of an issue, but even 100 is a bit difficult to manage. So am I going to email 113 people or 113 people's managers? In this case, I'm going to use data certification. So there's a data certification plugin. It's not on by default, but you can go activate it. It's part of the platform. The general use case for data certification is CMDB. And do you still own the server? Is this monitor still in your cube? Do you need it? Yeah. Is it still there? Well, we're going to use data certification to configure a group, and we're going to loop through our groups and have the manager of the group certify that, yes, I do need these subscriptions. It only does one vector at a time. It's a bit simplistic, but it's very easy to use. But I might do a certification once a quarter to go, do all these people still need to be in your group? Does your group need to have all of these roles? And then therefore, do they need to have these subscriptions? You can also just say, do all of that, make sure these are right, or you can do those separately, however, whatever makes sense, whatever your organization will take. But we want to periodically do this so that we're always able to reclaim licenses that are not needed anymore. I don't want to have to update an incident one time and pay for it forever, right? Or get into or cover for somebody in a change. They're there forever. If we have great automation, when I change teams, all my roles change. But a lot of times there's a crossover period, and I changed teams. I got all my new roles. They took away all my old roles, but I still had to go look at some changes for for 6 weeks in the transition period. So they manually gave me a direct role assignment, which would be really bad, or they manually put me back in that group. Using data certification allows us to sit on top of that and make sure we're good. We also then can put flows on top of that to say, well, if they say it's not needed, well, then go remove them, right? Create a removal flow. And whether you have approvals or not, or they have to acknowledge it, data certification can help us drive that event, not just of I need it, or they leave, but do I still need it? Have that periodic, quarterly, semi-annually, annual review. Great little app with data certification. We're seeing the existing version right now. I believe, Safe Harbor, that there's a new version coming out either in Vancouver or November, the November store release, with some improvements in there. But great functionality, and we talk about better together, where we can apply what we have in we're using for CIs, use that for groups, and better manage our costs. When we do it, we're going to be certifying the license group has subscription. All the data we have about the licenses, the roles, the users in the license, the groups that have the, sys group has role, sys user has role, sys user has license, sys group has subscription. All those tables are there. You can go look at them. If you explore via the subscription overview, you'll find the table names. In our labs, we put the table names in there as well. But we can go through really quickly, just say, I want all the groups, and sys group has subscription, everything's per user subscription, certify those. Each manager gets one email, says, you own these 6 groups. Are they all certified? And they can say yes or no, and then you can take action from there. Really great, really quick. You can have this running in 15 minutes. It's more important to think about what you're going to ask and how often you're going to ask it. The technical side of it is really, really easy to do. Okay, and a couple other useful tips that I have in here. So one, we talked about this before, but go to sys user has group, add the licenses, which will show up as managed subscription. Again, if you put in licenses, the related list licenses, you'll see managed subscriptions. We want to make subscriptions and entitlements at the forefront. When I see roles, see the subscriptions. When I see groups, see the subscriptions. Don't add ITIL to a group and not add a subscription for it. Every time we do that, it's a problem. We talked today about adding users to groups, adding roles to groups. I would actually go through a catalog item as well. These are things we do in prod. Don't let your admins just do it. Don't let them do it. Make sure we go through that catalog item and have what's on there. And again, we have a record of approvals. Everybody understands. You said what's going on. You can display the right information, however much you want to say about, hey, we're going to charge you back $50 per user, $100 per user, $5 per user, whatever it's going to be. There's a bill back. All that information is there. And again, we're managing those subscriptions every day, every change, not just an audit where one person, which might be you, is responsible for answering, why do these 1,000 people have that? It's a question you can't answer, but we can do it if we instrument these flows. Again, add the contained by in the roles, because understand that this role inherits this, which inherits this, which requires a license. Inheritance matters. It's not just the direct role stuff. And then understanding the subscription roles, going back to the question you have, which subscription does this role need? Does it need a subscription? You're going to see that by adding the subscription roles that's in there. All this metadata is in your instance. Take advantage of it. And as we come back, we can we can answer questions. I have the resources again to go through. Do we have questions to answer?
There were a couple. In the meantime, we answered some, and we'll follow up with some others. One just came up that might be interesting. How is it counted if the user is in more than one group? I think you talked about it earlier. Is they will only be counted once if for the same role.
Yes. So I'll tell you, it gets a little weird with it because we'll say, which group does this user have that's counting them? And you can find some of that, but we distinct it out because then the day doesn't matter. Whether you have multiple roles or they have multiple groups, we have a job that runs every day that says all the groups that give me all the distinct users that have this subscription and reduce it down into sys user has license, I believe is the table name.
Yeah.
Don't quote me, but I believe sys user has license. That is the list. If you go look at this in the subscription overview and you see the list of users, that table is the table where the sys user has license. And again, it's distincted down. So I want you to use groups. I don't want to have one group that is all my ITIL users. That has 1,000 people. What's the point?
Yeah.
We want to make sure we understand we have manageable groups. Entitlement and security, really, really similar. When they kind of start over here, but the best practices for security and best practices for entitlements really overlap. That you want to know who has access, who has an entitlement. You want to know why they have it, and you want to know if they still need it, right? And if they do need it, to make sure that we have the right approvals. If they think they need it, we want to make sure we have the approvals to confirm that. So whatever you're putting the lens of entitlement, just use security, you'll get the right answer.
Then there was one question. Jose was considering to create a new group type to more accurately identify ITIL groups. Will that have an effect on this system, or it's the group type is a field on the sys user group, so that should be no problem, right?
So it's not going to be a problem. It's not going to be a problem at all. And one of the things you could do is to run a job that says, well, give me all of the roles that need licenses, and then tag those groups so that you can filter them out. Because there are a lot of groups that don't need any, that don't have any roles. Groups that only have, they're only used for reporting, right? Sharing dashboards and things like that, or assignment groups. So if you want to, if you use group types and you have assignment groups and security groups, you can certainly flag it as entitlement. Just make sure you have something, because even though you may not want it to be this type of group, we're not stopping it from, we don't stop groups from having roles. So you need to look at the roles, see if those roles do need an entitlement, and then flag it. And then you could optimize this. I mean, that would be good to show you in the catalog item. Only show me a drop down of groups that matter, right? Only ones that have entitlements. I don't want to be added to an assignment group. That we do a different way. But is that good, right? Or should I be added to assignment groups the same way?
Then we had another question around the subscription management. You talked about enhancements coming in Vancouver. There are enhancements that are in the family release, but there's also a store app that people can install and update, or is it all in the store app? And how do people find that?
So there's part of it that upgrades on to come through. So with subscription management, there's a lot of APIs, right? When it comes down to it, this is built into the system pretty tightly. And what we've done, starting in Vancouver, and it'll continue out, is to break that apart so that particularly the user experience, the UI part, can be in the store, and we can upgrade that as needed. We can make it backward compatible, so you don't have to upgrade for all these things. So I believe you need Vancouver, and then you need the store release to come in. It will true up. So as you upgrade, you'll get the releases, but there is a planned store release for subscription management in November. You have to go get that. In Vancouver, I believe you have to as well to go turn it on. And I'll say in there, when we get into Vancouver, we have the new experience. There's some really nice things that come into it. Fundamentally, it all works the same, the group assignments. We are working to fundamentally change it so that you have to do less work, that you have less thinking to do and more automation, more recommendations. That's the big push we have. Today, when you put flows in, with data certification, you can get the right number, right? You have to tie it out to the user certification, but it is the right number. It is the right number. It's very close. You can make decisions on it. If you just let it go and you don't have it, and you have to kind of play catch up all the time to go through it. So, everything we talked about today applies through Vancouver. Go check out the new UI. Give us your thoughts on it.
We'll also
But we're
have an
not done.
academy on this later this year.
We have an academy on that we'll go through the
Yes.
newer stuff. But the latest and greatest, you're going to see a lot of improvements. We're not done, right? When we get to Vancouver, it will look not. I mean, it's going to look. It looks amazing. It does. It absolutely looks amazing. We're not done there, right? That's not enough, and we're going to continue to improve this for you.
Okay. There's one more question, and I think you hinted at this also earlier. Is there more info about how we can or should leverage Decision Builder for the approval processes? I believe there's an exercise in the lab guide that we'll share, right?
Yes, we go
As an
through
example.
kind of basic, yeah, a pretty basic one. The example we use is subscriptions don't have an approval group by themselves, and you can add it if you want, but there isn't one there. We just added it as a decision to say ITS. We created in the lab. We go through and we create ITSM subscription approvers, ITBM, APM. In the lab and in my example, I have lots of per user subscriptions. I just put a record in for each of those, and then have an assignment group that says these are the approvers. I hate having one person approve. It always will bite me. But we'll do approval groups. And then one of the things we do is go have a default. In Utah, we added a new default field. So I go, hey, if I add a new subscription, if it comes in and I didn't add who the approval group is, go to this super approval group.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the default result in Decision Builder, the bottommost row, which is really handy.
Yeah, it's awesome because in the past it'd be a complicated flow on what you want to do, a bunch of if-else things. I'd have a table, I have a script on it. With Decision Builder, it's ITSM is this group, APM is this group. Otherwise, go to subscription managers group. All done. It's guaranteed to work. You know, I mean, it's just so easy. We'll put that lab in there again. That'll go work on what you have. On a PDI, there's no subscriptions, so you can build it. You can't really test it. If you do it on a subprod that you have access to, there should be subscriptions in there. If there aren't subscriptions on your subprod, put a case in, we'll get them on there. They're on the vast majority of the time, but there's some issues where we can't get them on there. And in Vancouver, actually, one of the backend changes is to make sure we get all those subscriptions on there on your subprods. But you can go build it on there, right? It's like we're talking a catalog item, a pretty basic flow, decision table if you want to. None of this stuff is super hard. And that's the point. It's actually not really hard. We don't have to be afraid of it. We're just going to use the same tools we have to solve problems like we do all the time.
All right. I think we're at time, and I will do a few more shout outs to future content. We have a lot of new content coming because of the Vancouver release. We are looking at a whole range of platform academies in the next couple of months. We have started early starters in August with the process optimization, next experience, and platform analytics academies who talk about what's new in Vancouver. That I will share an overview on the community as well. So be sure to check the Now platform part of the community. So there are academies for AI, a lot of them for task intelligence, the new Gen AI controller, news about UI builder, creator workflows, platform document intelligence, Now Assist for search, and mobile apps. So please make sure to check out the other Academy series, sign up for this series, join if you can. All through August, September, and October, we'll talk about all the new goodness in Vancouver. Remember to upgrade your instances early and often, and then also update the store apps because there's more and more awesome goodness hidden in store apps. And we want you to have the newest features. So much from my side. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Adam, for this presentation. I think it's good content. It gives people an idea of how to bring together our platform products. And then this Academy will have some break for the next couple of weeks. We'll be back in September, on September 14th, and when we talk about what's new for the Now platform in Vancouver. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Ashley, and everybody. Bye.